Finally got some trade details as the Hornets are a third-party member in the blockbuster Karl-Anthony Towns trade. What are the Hornets getting in return? We have David Walker live on scene at Hornets training camp up in Durham. We'll get his thoughts on what he's seen so far coming up today on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free. We are available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. Before we talk about David's location real quickly, I did want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. There's Doug in his usual setup. EveryHornetsBoxScore.com is where you can check him out on his Substack. I'm Walker Mail. You can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday from 12 to 3. And if you're joining us on YouTube today, subscribe if you haven't yet as well. There's David Walker, weekly guest, and there's his background live, not at Cameron Indoor Stadium, but you do see him on the Duke practice court where the Hornets are conducting training camp. David, what can you tell us that you've seen so far in the first day of training camp as they hosted practice yesterday?
Yeah, guys, on the ground here in Durham, got a lot of weird looks. Didn't realize I was wearing my North Carolina hat, and this is a Carolina Panthers T-shirt. That just gets weird looks everywhere. But yeah, guys are excited. Just a real quick note on this this facility. It's a dump. It's like I thought it would be, but they're making good use of it. I like the idea of just taking it back to the basics. Just get down and dirty, get back to the basics. Slide drills, ball handling drills, like no air conditioning, very little water. The lights, one of the rare times they're working here. So yeah, I like the Hornets are going to grind this camp out, and maybe we'll see, some positive signs.
Peach baskets for rims.
Right.
Just back to the love of the game. No more divas here. This is what Charles Lee is. This is how he holds them accountable. Do you want me to take you back to Duke and play basketball? Play defense, or else we're going back to Duke, and that's where we're playing our home games.
That's right.
Just watch out for Gerald Henderson's elbow while you're out there, please.
I'm watching out for everything. I'm going to get tackled at some point.
Okay, David Walker, live on scene at training camp. I'm doing air quotes. There it is in the frame now. Live on scene in Durham. We have some trade details to get to. As we know, Jeff Peterson, the Hornets, they were involved again, just trying to get some free money, as I've described it before, while Karl-Anthony Towns is going from Minnesota to New York in exchange for Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. The Hornets are also involved in the details. The Hornets are receiving 3 second-round picks. They are also getting Daquan Jeffries, Charlie Brown Jr., and Dwayne Washington. And the only thing they have to give up is James Nnaji, my guy. The experience is over. We didn't even start the experience, really. I don't know what experience to speak of because he never played for the Hornets except like one time in Summer League where I felt like he could be the next rim protector, defensive force, but he's no longer here. So just to go over those details once more, Charlotte gives up James Nnaji. Charlotte receives 2025 second-round pick, 2026 second-round pick from Golden State via New York, 2031, 2031 second-round pick from the New York Knicks, Daquan Jeffries, Charlie Brown Jr., Dwayne Washington. Also, I forgot to mention $7.2 million in cash. So lots of just like little things, little bells and whistles, not the main entree, just a couple of side dishes that are coming over because Jeff Peterson only had to give up James Nnaji to get all that stuff. Doug, let's go with you first. What are your thoughts on the trade?
Yeah, not so free money now that they took your sweet, precious James Nnaji away from you. I've got to remove him now from my document. He is no longer in Spain. He is now in New York. I did see some people saying, well, this is just a result of James Nnaji not wanting to play in Charlotte, refusing to play in Charlotte. Folks, he refused to play in Charlotte the same way I refused to play in Charlotte, in that security will not allow me into the locker room, okay? Like, he was injured in Barcelona. He wasn't, particularly the Hornets, who needed centers last season. If James Nnaji could go and could give them good minutes, he would have played in Charlotte. But now he gets to go to New York, and the Hornets get a bag of cash in exchange for 3 players that we should note, according to Bobby Marks, are being acquired with the $8 million room exception.
Yeah.
This makes the Hornets the first team to acquire a player, nay, 3 players now, using a signing exception. This was a rule that was included in the 2023 CBA. So, folks, what you have here is Jeff Peterson setting trends, using every rule to his advantage to not only you help New York because they needed to sign and trade these players in order to keep themselves, a lot of cap gymnastics here, to keep themselves out of cap hell. And then New York says, hey, we'll pay you to take these players. We will pay you $7.2 million in cash to sign these 3 guys into your room exception. And, oh, by the way, 3 second-round picks. This is a truly outstanding deal. And I don't know how Jeff Peterson – I wonder if this is like relationships, if he knew somebody in the room to get it, because I think there were probably a couple of teams that could have come in and done this, but the Hornets were there, they were available, and they make it happen.
Well, we have sound bites on that because I asked Jeff Peterson how something like this happens on Weston Walker. Is it via relationships? Are you calling? Are you hearing something where Minnesota is interested in dealing Cat, New York is interested in acquiring Cat, and then you make the call? Or do you just have relationships well enough to where they're calling you, understanding what your book looks like? And Jeff Peterson is a guy that has networked so well. That's how it all goes down. He does say it's relationships. Jeff Peterson told us on Monday that relationships are everything in this business. And so when a deal like this goes down and they're looking for a third-party trade member, like the Hornets are going to be receiving these calls. I mean, we have evidence of that. Like this is why we discussed it so much. I wanted to get how in the world this happens. We wanted those assets with Mitch Kupchak there. We wanted to get through some trades like this in the past, and now Jeff Peterson is making it happen, and it's because of the relationships that he has. That's how he's credited, and now they're welcoming 3 second-round picks, guys that probably won't be on the roster, but because they have that room, it allows them to collect a few assets here and there, and 2031 second-round pick, okay? It's not like I expect them to use the 2031 second-round pick, but it greases the wheels to get deals done down the line in 2025, 2026, with that just being in your bag.
Yeah, just really quickly, we did miss one thing. The 2031 second-round pick is conditional on AI allowing us to continue to enjoy NBA basketball. So that's the only thing there.
It's in the fine print. David, your thoughts?
Yeah, same thing you guys have said yesterday, kind of reporting on this. We've been screaming for the Hornets to make moves like this, be this kind of like way station, right? The facilitator for other teams, either to get a larger deal done that they were trying to get done, take things off their hands that's just going to improve either your book or your future assets. And yeah, I mean, of course it comes down to relationships. Of course it comes down to, putting it out there that you're willing to do that, making calls, receiving calls, and being aggressive on that front to kind of set you up for the future. So, I mean, yeah, immediately, does this do anything for the Hornets roster and on-court projections next year? Probably not a whole lot. But you've got to like the new thinking in the building and the new actions that they're taking to improve things now and to hopefully facilitate making things better in the long run. So, I mean, just you got to be excited about it and like who's running things now and the hands they're in. Younger guys making connections. They kind of understand how this stuff is going to work. And like to your point, Doug, using new stuff. I mean, there's your trivia question right there. Tuck that in your back pocket, okay? 5 years down the road, who was the first team, guys, to use that exception?
Well, and it might be the only team because there's a lot of finagling happening here that I think the competition committee or somebody's going to go back maybe next CBA and say, okay, this was not in the spirit of what we were trying to set up here with the aprons. But
look how long it took to get worked out, right? This is what, almost a week? at this point. And like, we don't know what the hangups were, but obviously there was a lot of little pieces they had to fit in there and get everything to fit together. So I'm sure the Hornets were involved in this talks.
And I don't think it's technically still done. We just got the reporting details. I think they have to actually, we don't have the call here, and New York had to sort of awkwardly go to their media day and not talk about Karl Anthony Towns.
It's a good sign that we have these details, though, because like the little ironing out of these details are the things that can be the holdup sometimes. So the fact that we have these details means they're probably getting pretty close to signing the official paperwork.
Yeah, typically when the Hornets or any other team is involved in a deal like this, you have to take back bad money to get these second-round picks. What makes this deal so amazing is that you're signing them into an exception that you already had, and you're getting the cash to offset that. I mean, it's just a brilliant move financially. It's a brilliant move for the team. Now, I will say this. I do like that they're a part of this kind of deal, if and only if it leads to future bigger deals that actually make the team better. If for the next 5 years we only see moves like this that help the books or help the asset collection, if they get addicted to that, then I'll look back on this and go, well, I'm not as big a fan of what happened there. It was the start of something bad. But if these second round picks are someday packaged for a player that can actually make a legitimate difference in terms of them getting and competing in the playoffs, then all the better. But early reports, at least, signal to me that this is Jeff Peterson being savvy, and we can hope that he can be savvy in a bigger way in the future.
So you would say, Doug, if I was to ask you, did the Hornets win this trade? Your answer is TBD.
Well, my answer is I was watching NBA TV and they didn't even mention Charlotte in this trade. We're going to forget about that because Cat goes
we've got a long way to go before they're not the butt of every trade joke, but this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, well, and I mean it's fair, right, to say that New York won the trade because they got the best player in this blockbuster deal. They eventually end up with James Nnaji, and the Hornets get a few second-round picks. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. I like that it says you can get started even if we're already past week 4 in the NFL, because it feels like a new season with the Carolina Panthers. If you pull for the Panthers, this is a new season. Andy Dalton, baby. You can start to bet the overs on Deontay Johnson if you want to. Take the over on Chuba Hubbard. Take the over on Dave Canales being your future head coach for 10, 15, 20 years. All that stuff. FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. More Locked On Hornets ahead. I really am feeling great about the head coaches. They are fun. Dave Canales and Charles Lee. I saw some YouTube commenter say that he don't want to hear about the Panthers anymore, but it is a new season, and they're in my life constantly. So every once in a while I talk about them here and get platforms crossed over. I did want to say a couple of other things on this trade, though. So with Jeff Peterson and company acquiring 3 more second-round picks, if you go to the future draft picks page as it pertains to the Hornets organization, I'm not going to have your eyes gloss over with all of the picks that they have, but you see so many different team logos with how many draft picks that they have in the future. So you have the 2025 first round pick that belongs to the Spurs, but it is top 14 protected. So there you go. Once the Hornets, are not a playoff team, you get the idea. And then you go to 2027 and then so on and so forth. There's so many other logos. Like, we have other people's picks, OPP, other people's picks all over the place. So yeah, I'm down with it as well. And it's nice to have that stockpile to just be able to go to the other room. It's like the messy storage room, maybe the dining room. You don't eat off that table. You always eat in front of the TV anyway, but there's a bunch of picks over there and they're valuable and you don't want to throw it away. The dining room is full for the Charlotte Hornets, and I'm glad that they haven't organized all of it. Glad they got a big stockpile.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's great to have a hoarder as a GM. That's what you want. You want that. Now, again, I'll go back to how I ended the last segment, though. Eventually, you have to do something with those. I'm not calling for it right now. Careful, folks. I'm not saying do something right now, but eventually I will pick up that banner. I hope I don't have to pick up that banner again.
My question too. This was an innovative trade because we haven't seen anything like this before, where you're absorbing contracts via the mid-level exception, which is a new rule in the CBA going into this 2024-2025. But with them doing this, would you rather have just used that space for another player? Because that's what it usually is reserved for. So just because there's not precedent, does it mean that it's good, or does it just mean that it's forward thinking, and the whole forward thinking part, like sometimes it'll be good, sometimes it's bad, maybe it's 50-50. David, would you rather have just reserved that for another player that could help you now, maybe a younger player where it's like a Josh Green level guy, it may be a different role, different scenery, could propel him to a different level? I wonder if people would have valued that more, or if you do just want the 3 second-round picks and players that will get cut anyway. Like, what do you find more valuable?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because you don't quite know what you don't know, right? And just that today is the day, and I think they're looking to make moves in real time, right? So like they could have held that back, I guess, and not gotten involved in this. But I think from what we've heard from the higher ups on media day, they're clearly painting this as not an overnight fix. This is not an overnight turnaround, and they're certainly approaching it that way. And if you think about it that way, it's all about collecting, those future assets and not necessarily adding something that may push them. How far is it going to push them? I think they've got to be thinking that, right? They're like, is a mid-level signing going to push us into guaranteed playoff spot? I don't know. But we like how this sets us up for the future. So that must be, kind of the road they're going down at this time.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a player that exists that would do that for them, unless it would be a giant surprise. And so, yeah, I think I'm willing to give this organization time to evaluate what they have and find out who's going to be on board the Charles Lee defense train that he is making sure is departing the station in Durham at training camp. And I'm willing to give them the time to evaluate that before, I'm like, hey, go out and get this player or that player. So I'm fine with the move. I do have some video from training camp day one. They are underway in Durham if you want some of that.
I do. I just wanted some house cleaning. I said mid-level exception. It's room exception, just to get that clear. But after that, yes, now I'm ready for the video. Please proceed.
All right, this is Charles Lee talking about that defense that I was just mentioning there, some of the work that they've been doing.
I had to go up against them today at practice, and to see how they battled back in that one scrimmage and kicking the ball ahead and playing some defense and being the MIG and getting some stops.
MIG, tell me about MIG.
Most important guy, a great acronym that I learned, and I've put a little bit of a twist on it now where it's the guy on the ball. Early on, I learned that it was the weak side bottom guy that's got to come over and be there as the safety valve. But now I just think the first layer, or really, I guess the second layer, because transition defense is probably your first layer, is to keep the ball in front of you. And so taking that individual challenge and having individual pride to want to keep the guy in front of you.
So defense being the first drill at training camp, that's the focus of everything that's happening around the Charlotte Hornets right now, rebuilding that defense, and you've got all of the wings healthy. He has all the tools available, and then I love bringing in these concepts and shifting that most important guy from the help defender into the guy that stops the ball. That has been one of the biggest frustration points watching the Charlotte Hornets defense, is they could not have anyone up front take pride in stopping the basketball, and that resulted in this domino effect that was particularly harmful for the Charlotte Hornets because they didn't have a shot blocker. Well, they don't have a powerful one in Mark Williams at training camp. So I just love everything that I'm hearing from that clip.
So I'll tell you this too. Asking Charles Lee and Mark Williams on Wesson Walker what the defense was going to look like, the difference in scheme compared to Steve Clifford. It looks like I am going to hit on the over blocks for Mark Williams this year. The reason for that is because they're going to allow Mark Williams to roam, little Giannis-like, not the ability, but being the roamer back there, rather than having your assignment and sticking with it. If he's out on a non-shooter in the corner, Mark Williams has more freedom to go help out anybody that might get past their initial man. Might go over to, maybe he gets hungry eyes and then he wants to go swat it. It feels like Charles Lee gets a little more, Mark Williams gets a little more free reign to do that. So with them having the crazy long wingspan, standing reach, body, smart, athletic guy, kind of serving as that roamer. I'm fascinated to see how that works, but I'm excited too because I think it'll lead to a lot more fun plays. So if you have Josh Green as like your POA defender for the most part, Brandon Williams works on becoming a versatile two-way guy that's a good team defender, and then you have Mark Williams as a roamer. Like now you're starting to work with some things, and that part of the reason it didn't work defensively. Not because Clifford doesn't understand fundamental concepts. It's because he just didn't have the personnel, especially because of the injuries. But now you're getting some personnel, you're making some changes, and you're kind of tinkering with what Mark Williams will do. I really like what's going to happen defensively. At least I hope it plays out that way on the floor.
Yeah, that's it for me. It's the changes that you mentioned. It's the implementing of, this new system, giving these guys something new to chew on and kind of go after. Bringing in all the new acronyms and putting those into place with this team that was just in such need of a breath of fresh air, a rebrand. Walker, you said it the other day when you were at Media Day, just like a different air about the things in there, right? And people were up and people were jazzed. And so like a lot of that old stuff is out the window now, and it's a completely different regime. And you have to like what you hear from the head coach there. I mean, he is a smart guy. I mean, you could tell he's already got his brand, he's already got his system, and he's got his stuff that he's implementing onto these guys. And so it's going to be fun to watch them kind of as we get into the preseason and see some of that, get into the regular season. And the defensive side of the ball, can you imagine? I mean, if you've got the buy-in, that stuff becomes it just gets passed down, right? If that can filter all the way down to a guy like LaMelo Ball, who you guys talked a little bit about earlier in the week, being the defensive guy, he's got the length, he's got the athleticism. If he can be the last line or the last link in that chain, I guess, as to you're depending on, even that's going to be an even bigger boost. But yeah, you got to like what you hear so far, and just the new excitement that they're rolling out there.
David's so right. The key to a great defense in the NBA is a good acronym. And MIG is a great acronym because, honestly, the past couple of seasons, the only acronym that I can think of when you watch Terry Rozier and LaMelo Ball and some of these guards get blown by would be FFS, for bleep's sake. And then when they got put into rotation, you'd think WTF. Mm-hmm. And then eventually you'd come to the determination that this Hornets defense was a POS.
Oh, boy.
All the acronyms.
Wow.
And nobody wanted to roll with those acronyms, and so I'm glad Charles Lee is bringing something different to the table.
By the way, real quick, we talked about buzzwords on yesterday's show, and someone mentioned this in the chat. We forgot about the buzziest of buzzwords around the Charlotte Hornets right now. We heard it multiple times during Media Day, and it's going to be all through camp, and that's Hornets DNA, baby. Talk about there's another one. I think DNA is an acronym, right? It means something.
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Oh, look at it. Nerd alert. NA nerd alert.
DNA, yeah. Shout out to Ms. Baxter Yoder back in middle school. All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
MBY.
We'll finish some thoughts on training camp plus TV plans. As Doug tweeted out, the Hornets continue to make smart decisions. We'll talk about that coming up next. LOH. Another acronym. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time? Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets anymore. Game Time Picks curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, so it's not just sporting events. They also have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature will show the total up front, so you don't have any surprise fees at checkout. It's the worst when you have to spend $10, $15, $25 more than what was originally told to you. You don't have to worry about that here in Game Time. Seat views, get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and they also give you Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. Locked On NBA. For $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time.
Game time.
More Locked On Hornets ahead.
All right, before we talk about TV plans, I do have one more clip to play. This is going to be one of the MIGs for the Hornets next season. LaMelo Ball, we got to hear from him first day of training camp, and he's going to be one of the guys that is going to be depended on to stop that basketball up top and be part of this defensive revolution that Charles Lee is trying to set out to do. So let's hear from LaMelo Ball on that defense.
Coach started off by saying make the most of your opportunity today. What did you want to do to make the most of your opportunity today?
Just be out there and try my hardest.
For you, defense is something that Coach said he wants you to really step up this year. Did you kind of feel that in the first practice? There was definitely...
we went over a lot of defense today, so definitely applying that.
How much do you kind of accept that challenge and are kind of welcoming that challenge to step up defensively?
Yeah, definitely accept it.
I accept it. I mean, can you feel the excitement of Hornets basketball?
We were going through a transcript. I think I was listening to the Kyle Bailey show, and Kyle read verbatim one of the answers that he had, and then Smoke replied, "Yeah, you could have told me who said this quote, and I would have been able to tell you without any hesitation. LaMelo Ball gave us that quote."
Yeah.
So do you think he's a little shorter than usual right now? It feels like that to me. And obviously we know what LaMelo's get down has always been. It's always been not going to give you a whole lot when he speaks to the media. Nothing is surprising. Yeah. It feels like he might be a little more frustrated at the podium. I'm sure it comes from the constant line of questioning on ankles, injuries, ankle braces, not being able to play. What's your timeline? Like, I'm sure it is frustrating to him. And I'm not saying that it's the media's fault. I don't know about it being, I don't know how much of it is LaMelo's fault as far as him suffering the injuries. I know we want him to wear ankle braces. The training staff has him on something that he's more comfortable with. He told us that. But he does seem to be a little shorter, if that was possible, with media than he had been even 2 years ago when everything was happy. He had an all-star appearance. We were all extremely excited about what could become of his career. And he was short then, shorter than everybody else. And now it seems a little worse here, even in this go-around.
Yeah, I think, LaMelo's best on-camera reactions or sound bites or the best stuff you get from him that comes to my mind is – like the on-court stuff right after the game, right after a win specifically, asking about Thanksgiving food, maybe not so much. But, that's when more of his personality comes out because he has the personality, right? He was on a reality show, basically. He's LaMelo Ball, for crying out loud. Like his whole draft process, his family is basically a reality show. It's not like it's not there. I just think particularly in this setting, practice – it's kind of ho-hum. He's got to go through these mandatory things basically at training camp and at media day. Not his favorite thing, not his favorite thing. I'm sure he's sick of talking about the ankles and the I bet he cusses this. I know he cusses the ankles and the ankle braces. But I just think that's how it's going to be. And I think this is what makes the Brandon Miller edition even better because Brandon seems to shine when the lights turn on, the cameras in front of him. He kind of has fun. He'll tell a joke or two. It seems like, to me at least, in a media day type situation. So maybe the shift will go from LaMelo for a fun quote to Brandon in these type of situations. And LaMelo can just kind of be himself and let it come out when it's natural because he is a fun loving kid or whatever, but it just does not come out in the situations. I don't know if it ever will. He's probably as ready as anyone to get to the season and have some more of those good moments where he can laugh at it. So this is a little bit par for the course. Maybe he's a little more bristly right now because he just wants to get to it, Walker. But, I think that's the Melo we've come to know and love.
Yeah, I don't think naturally he's ever been that introspective about why he's good at basketball or where some of the things that he could improve on basketball wise. He's never been really totally willing to open up about that. I don't know how much he necessarily thinks about it, except sort of on an instinctual level of this is what I have to do. I'm sure he understands I've got to get better at defense, but I don't know that he really puts thoughts together such that he can communicate them in that kind of setting. And he's never needed to play that game, that sort of normal game of media interaction to build a brand. The brand
Right.
As David was saying, he was put on a TV show early in his youth. So, like, the brand was almost built for him, essentially. And then, obviously his basketball skills on top of that helped propel him to where he is. But one does wonder, though, at some point, if the Hornets get competitive or he lands on a team in the future that is competitive, I don't think it's going to be so easy to get through those press conferences with those answers. I think he will engender more criticism. He's not getting that criticism now because, again, the Hornets are in a state of irrelevancy. So, I don't think the media is going to go and say, well, he needs to say more. But, yeah, so I think all of that sits on top of what's going on there with LaMelo.
And he probably sees very little value in opening up to the media at these press conferences, right? To your point, Doug, like his brand has been built. He knows where to go to outreach to his fans, to his followers, just stuff like that. So like, I'm sure he doesn't see a whole lot of, he's not going to go viral from this, right? He's viral. Like his existence is almost completely 100% viral. This is a little bit old school probably for him.
Well, it'll be interesting, though, as time goes on and that begins to fade. And it will fade unless he's competing for playoff series wins or championships at some point. All that will go away. And so, like, one wonders if the pressure to keep that up will eventually catch up with him. I don't know the answer to that.
Still young. It'll be interesting to see if this new regime of the Hornets try and nudge him a little bit.
It's not going to work. Well, that's the thing. The Hornets have paid the most money for this player that is not going to be, because look, this is an entertainment product and this is about drawing fans in. So as much as they love him to like stay healthy and be great at basketball, there is another side of this whole game that he just does not want to play, and there's nothing the Hornets can do about that except try to just not get him to flip the camera off when they're doing like media stuff.
All right, let's go to some TV plans real quickly. Give us the rundown, Doug, on an announcement that we saw Eric Spanberg also writing in the Charlotte Business Journal in a sit-down, in a back and forth with Shelly Kayette Weston.
Yeah, this is amazing news, and it's really a follow-up to what we've been following with the whole Amazon Bally going bankrupt, where the Hornets going to be broadcast. We know for sure that Bally will be covering all the games this season, that Eric Collins and Del Curry are going to be on the call for all the games this season, but we got a new bit of news here from the CBJ writing, the Charlotte Hornets expect to air 5 regular season games on local TV this season. Local TV, bunny ears, antenna, for free. Adopting NBA teams' recent shift from putting all games on cable and streaming, the channel and games have yet to be determined. So we don't know what games, we don't know what network, but Shelly Kayette Weston, the new team president of the Charlotte Hornets, said this: the reason for that, putting these games on TV, has nothing to do with financial. The reason for those over-the-air games is to continue to broaden the reach. We're looking and doing some research about what the best opportunity could be for that. She added of the local TV strategy, which would likely include stations in other cities across North and South Carolina.
What?
Quote, we want to be a team of the Carolinas.
We want people to see us.
Wow.
Yeah. Jeez, it's almost like, this is just, I have an idea. What if we put games on TV where people could see it? I mean, this is literally what we've been screaming for since CSET.
Right. It seems simple.
God.
It seems simple, right? Put the games on local TV. Here's the issue, and this is why teams don't do that, because the setup when everything went to Fox Sports Carolina at the time was the regional sports network deal was,
right,
we air your games and then give you a bag of cash. And that was particularly interesting to teams like the Hornets that were not making enough money, and particularly interesting to an owner in Michael Jordan that was sort of notoriously cheap anyway. Like that was great. Like, oh, you give us a bag of money? Perfect. So that's the calculation that they've been making. It's interesting to note they could have done this last season. They could have put up to 10 games on local TV and opted not to. So I think what you're seeing here is what we've been talking about over and over. New ownership is investing in the long-term success of the Charlotte Hornets, meaning they're going to, in the long run, give up a little money to make a little money, something that the previous regime was not willing to do.
Well, and last thing for me as we wrap up, I'll say this. I'm glad that they're doing this, right? Because obviously it's been something we've been asking for so long. I was a little worried about some cheap moves that ownership could make, because even if Michael Jordan had plenty of money, it's also not stupid money relative to other owners in the league. Same thing here with Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin. Like, these guys are a partnership for a reason. They are not David Tepper out here being at the top of the food chain when it comes to, their finances with other owners in the league. This is not Steve Ballmer in the association. So the fact that you could make the argument that it would make sense for Schlotkin to continue to try to bring in as much money as possible and continue to bring in the bags of cash. But clearly there is a vision. Clearly they are trying to invest in the future, as you stated, Doug. And that is reassuring. That is comforting, that even if they don't have the most money in the world compared to all the other owners in the league, that they're still choosing to make decisions that are better for the future of this organization.
Yeah, and I guess their hand was forced a little bit with all this Bally's mess. But just to clarify, do you guys, would the game still be on Bally's and they would just grab it and throw it on a local WSOC, WB, something like that, Fox,
exactly. So part of the agreement with Bally's that would have allowed them to do 10 games last season is essentially it's going to be a simulcast. So it's EC and Dell on the call. You could watch it on Bally. You could watch it on local TV. And so it's going to be a great deal for Hornets fans. And as soon as I posted this online, there were multiple comments that were like, only 5, do more. And that, I think, goes to show you the demand that's out there. People want these games to be available. They don't want to have to go through all the hoops that they've had to jump through with Bally. The Hornets are smart for doing this, and I think they're taking a cautious approach. They're trial ballooning this. So if you're listening to this and you have the opportunity when those games get announced to watch it on local TV, my suggestion is if you want this to continue and expand, then choose to watch it on whatever network they opt to air it on and not use other means.
Oh, you're telling me that I should be choosing a different option other than Bally's if given? I guess I will.
Dear God.
Yeah.
This is a good thing. This is a good thing, everyone out there. This is a step in the right direction for sure.
The theme of this entire show has been organization does things that they should have been doing for years but weren't, and the reasons why they were not all come down to one thing: money and engagement. Well, 2 things: money and then willingness / engagement. And now we have that, and it is. We're not. This is not an immediate return thing. This is not the Hornets trading for Karl Anthony Towns. But these are small moves that, if are setting them up to make big moves in the future.
That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. Free and available anywhere you get your pods. That includes YouTube. David Walker, live from training camp. You're going to be on site for the next couple days?
Yeah, I'm going to be up here for the next couple of days, guys. Just keeping an eye on things. If you need anything, let me know.
Will do. Let us know what Coach K has to say.
No merch. I'm good.
David Walker, follow him on Twitter at David B. Walker. There's Doug Branson, also Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. Walker Mail, WFNZ every weekday, Wes and Walker from 12 to 3 p.m., 92.7 FM. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.